Today's episode is brought to you by Sleepy.
Raucous, raucous, raucous.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, my man. How are you?
I am feeling great, and like I'm running on the fumes of G Fuel crystals and G Fuel energy powder, out of necessity now, and not just out of pure pleasure. I still am on that kick of I feel like I haven't slept in weeks. But it's all for greatness.
Pro tip: try sleeping.
Next time, if you're feeling sleepy, try taking a nap. No, there's too many people in my office to nap. Or actually, that's not true. My office is too small to nap in.
I was gonna say, or you could try sleeping in your bed at night, like
There's only so many hours between.
I can't
hours
do
between 2 a.m. and.
Don't get me wrong, I can't take this advice myself, but it's out there and available to us.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a thing for sure. It's It is something I wish I could do, but I can't. I wish I could, but I can't. But we've got a great show here because I am being fueled here by G Fuel. So let's go over a little bit of housekeeping. Of course, we've got the Black Watch report, always up and at 'em, with the Tier 2 coverage of OW. I believe Contenders is over right now. I don't know, some Contenders truthers should probably chime in here.
Fix our knowledge in chat, please.
I'm pretty sure it's coming to a close soon-ish. Maybe playoffs.
I'm pretty sure at least one region is finished, but I'm not 100% certain on all of it.
That's true. But regardless, either we're going to be seeing a regular episode or perhaps the Boop NATO Black Watch Report Power Hour is coming back around. I know they like to do that in the off weeks there, so definitely stay up to date with Black Watch Report.
Either way, like Gauntlet hasn't been played yet. There's still plenty of Tier 2, and Tier 2 doesn't sleep, let's be honest. Their seasons might end,
true,
but it's like in between stages for Overwatch League, or at least that's what it feels like for me, trying to keep up with it even a little bit during the season and all that stuff. So there's Black Watch Report doesn't sleep because Contenders doesn't sleep, so they're always got stuff going on over there.
Yeah, it's kind of like me now. It never sleeps.
Nobody sleeps.
They have
we
way
don't
more
allow
energy.
It.
Yeah, they have way more energy than I do, and they're a much better production than I am. But I'm the one you're stuck with. So, oh well. We've also got Foul Play, of course. Fantasy Overwatch League play. They have concluded their season, and I'm not sure about the specific. I would assume we're going to be seeing in the next couple of weeks, if not this week, maybe a mock draft or something like that. Something fun there. If not, we've got the end of the season here for Foul Play, and definitely make sure that you are checking that out for all of your Fantasy Overwatch League needs there. But enough about that. Let's talk about what we did this week. Death, anything fun and exciting for you?
Man, I fixed my own car yesterday, so something.
Oh, you did get it fixed.
I thought it was going to cost me like $120 or something like that, and my boss kind of showed me a little bit at work, like how I can take the part out, and I was able to find a place that had it for $20.
Oh, nice!
And I just switched it out, and I got the whole thing done on lunch the day I was like messaging you in the morning, like super pissed off. If it's not one thing or it's another with this car, it's a money sink. I'm done with it. But $20, it was fine.
Those are always. It's such a feels good of like, I'm just dreading this, and then it's like, no, actually, you can just kind of do a little, a little bit of stuff here. Spend $20, find the part, and you can just do it yourself. Right. It's like,
and it was such a stupid problem. Like if the engine falls out of the car, I'm like, okay, I get that. It's expensive. I need to fix it, but yeah, car needs it. But my power windows, It's like, shut up and give me the crank. I'm fine with the crank.
Right.
I don't want to spend money to fix it. Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was great. Otherwise, I've just been enjoying Teamfight Tactics and Overwatch, obviously, as well. Still doing some of the roll lock action. Did cool off a little bit on the Doomfist Genji only account just because, boy, is quick play not the best experience. But I do want to get quick play done before roll lock hits quick play. Because let's be honest, I really don't want 6-minute queue times to try to get into a quick play game to be able to play DPS. So I'll need to redouble my efforts before that happens. I think it might be in a couple days, so I'm probably just not going to get there. But yeah, otherwise just been fantasy football drafts galore this weekend.
Nice.
So had multiple of those. Crazy busy weekend. Like my teams for the most part. I'll spare you guys going down the list since plenty of you don't care about the sports ball. But suffice it to say, I plan on dominating.
I mean, I feel like our show probably has the highest percentage of people who do care about it compared to any other esports
probably
podcast.
Right. But hit me up on Discord if you want to see my rosters. I'm happy to send you pictures.
We have
and have
sports.
A
We
there.
have a sports talk channel in our Discord, discord.me/High Noon Podcast. Make sure you check it out if you do, because you know what, High Noon Podcast Discord. It's a great Discord. You can talk about whatever you want in the correct channel, which is usually off topic if it's not about Overwatch specifically. We have enough talk about sports where it has its own channel, but make sure you join there and join in on the conversation. For me, been on the TFT grind. Doing the TFT show. I dusted off the old casting hat yesterday. Casted a little bit for the first time in a while, and boy, am I rusty. But it felt good, so definitely going to try to be.
You're surprisingly resistant to sharing that information, so I'll do it for you. If you want to hear more of Blevins talking about Teamfight Tactics, it's called the Little Legends Podcast. And if you want to see him be a shoutcaster for a tournament that he did yesterday, it was Heroes Hearth TFT Fight Night is the name of the event. So check that out. Hit us up on Discord. We'll send you a link to it as well. Just give the name every now and then stop after a couple episodes. Considering you at everyone in the
hey, I don't do it anymore. I don't do it anymore.
Every time you stream,
I don't do it anymore.
It's funny to me that you won't do a 10-second plug of your own stuff on this show.
I took it off. I made the other Discord. Now I've got that place. I made the other Discord. I don't want to name it because I don't want too many people going over to discord.me/Little Legends Podcast. So I'm not going to name where the Discord is.
We wouldn't want that.
Oops. No. Man, this not passive aggressive, just passive. This new strat is just working on you like flawlessly. It's
now it's just. I mean, it's aggressive. You're not passive aggressive. It's just aggressive. I'm into it, and we're friends. So we and specifically, I mean, how many times do we bring up Magic the Gathering? It's like strategy games.
All the time.
We talk more about strategy games than we do Overwatch. Like our Overwatch talk is usually pretty centered in this show. We could have the same conversation multiple times, do it once after the match and once on the air.
Right. But. Well, we also try not to have too many in-depth conversations about Overwatch because we would rather have them on the show.
Right. Let's have them happen on air. It seems better that way. So.
Yeah, so that's that. If you have questions about it, you can hit us up on Discord. But let's move on here to... I'm definitely stalling because I have the buttons ready.
It's news.
Only real piece of news here, although it doesn't seem big right now because we're in the midst of the
playoffs.
With Overwatch League Grand Finals coming up, that's obviously where our focus is. But this is going to be big news post Grand Finals because we've got some Overwatch World Cup news. Woo! I don't have like an unenthusiastic drop for that, but figured I could just make one. We have the final 7 for Team USA here. You may have gotten a little bit of an allusion to what we're going to be talking about and focusing on here at the opening drop. But without further ado, let's introduce our Team USA final 7. At DPS, we got 3 folks here. We've got Corey, Sinatra, and KSF on the DPS line. We'll go through them all, and then we'll talk about each individually. We've got Super and Space at the tank line, and we have, drum roll please, Moth and Raucous rounding out the lineup for the final 7 for Team USA Overwatch World Cup. Moth and Raucous are on the support line. We will save them for last because I think that's where most of the brunt of the conversation is going to be here. So let's start with the DPS core. Sinatra, MVP candidate, the prodigal son from the second half of Season 1. One of the most popular, I was going to say characters in Overwatch. That's actually pretty true. One of the most popular characters in the Overwatch League. Seems like a no-brainer here for Sinatra. Corey been popping off recently, though. I think if this was picked 2 months ago, maybe we would be having more of a conversation. Maybe not. And then KSF is also on the team. What do you think about the DPS core here for Team USA?
And the crowd goes mild. Yeah, it's.
I know that's not original, but I don't know if I've ever heard that before.
The DPS line here, I think they did a pretty good job. It's a really difficult task to ask the committee to fill out a DPS core of 3 players without knowing what the meta will be, especially for the US, who tends to surprisingly have a lot of overlap in their DPS players, right? Like we've got some seriously good tracer players. We've got some seriously good hit scan players. We don't really have an overwhelming abundance of projectile players, and I do think that's changed a little bit. Obviously, Stratus came out of his shell late in the year. There's a couple other possible options as well. I'm blanking, and it's so hard to know definitively if some of these guys are American or Canadian, but
Right.
Nero is another option that I think could have seriously been considered, that could have played the projectile role, maybe given this roster a little bit more of a well-rounded composition. Right now, I look at this and I see 3 players that are predominantly playing hit scan heroes in the Overwatch League at the moment. That makes it a little tough to me to really see this roster as bulletproof. That said, there's a lot of metas where these 3 players will be nutty, bananas, super good. I was very critical of KSF when he kind of started out in the Overwatch League. In my defense, he put out some pretty brutally bad performances, and granted in a very small sample size, which I think we did recognize at the time.
Right.
But presumably, he did used to play projectile a bit, so I guess he's the one that's going to handle it. That's, to me, as far as the DPS line is concerned. We've got Tracer on lockdown with Sinatra. He's got the Doomfist as well. I tend to think Sombra might be a little more in vogue, but it's, again, all conjecture. I'm guessing at what the meta will be. It could change drastically by that time. So if Sombra is better, I think Dante might have been a better choice than Sinatra. Obviously, he can also flex into that. Corey is the best Widowmaker that the U.S. could have fielded. He's the best Hanzo player that they could have fielded, so I guess that'll help as well. He's got the sniper, so that'll help bridge the projectile gap. Having him to run Hanzo, I think he was a great selection, definitely one I would have chosen myself. But yeah, like Nero or Stratus, I think might have been a better choice than KSF. Makes me wonder how much they use, right? Because I don't know, it's very difficult to say, right? I think Corey and Stratus right now are both like a little overrated, because I think people look at results and just go, all 6 of these players are great. Like I bet you we could hit an uninformed casual group of fans and ask them what they think of Janus, and they would talk about how great he's been.
Right.
And the rest of us would go like, yeah, on one hero, and then he's garbage on the rest of them. And so I think there's a lot of public perception gets warped by team performances, and that really affects the individuals a lot. So it's gonna be very interesting to see. This is very close to the optimal DPS lineup that I would have chosen. Like I said, one substitution here or there, and then another one. The Sinatra Dante discussion to me depends heavily on what's better, Tracer or Sombra in the meta game. And if it's Tracer, then they absolutely got this right. So I think the DPS line's pretty solid here. There's some concerns, but hopefully the meta cooperates, and if it does, the DPS line will not be even remotely alive. So.
Yeah, that I think is what you really have to do in a situation like this if you're a non-Korea team, or maybe even more specifically in the US. You need to have a team where, you know what, this is not necessarily the most well-rounded comp. And if the meta is not favoring them, you know what? they're probably not going to win. However, if the meta is favoring them, if they get that, sort of high roll scenario where the meta is favoring, a Corey Sinatra meta, or even a KSF Sinatra KSF Corey meta, or some combination of those three, if it's in their favor, you want to put yourself in the best position to win. You don't really want, because for World Cup, yes, obviously you want to get either gold, silver, or bronze, but at the end of the day, you just want to win, and you want to win specifically against South Korea, right? That's the real game, is beating South Korea, and you need to put yourself in the best position to beat them. Are you going to be able to beat them if your team is ever not in an optimal meta? Probably not. Are you ever going to? But you want to be able to put yourself in a position where if the meta lines up for you, you have the absolute strongest team to do that. And I think that's what this kind of looks like. So you don't necessarily want to have a well-rounded meta and predict the future. You just need to get a little bit lucky when you're that underdog, which I think every team is going to be going in against South Korea, at least at this point. So I like it. I think, and especially now, at the end of the day, they need to garner some favor. There's no world where Sinatra's not, right in the front of that picture. He's got to be, even if he's not 100% windmill slam the best pick. I could see the Dante getting subbed in a objective, fact-based, numbers only sort of decision. But that's not what this is necessarily. They're representing the country, and I think, Sinatra with Jake not being the player in this, and obviously he opted out last year and not playing, it really kind of seems like Sinatra is kind of the golden boy here in terms of players for representing the U.S. So I definitely like this lineup here. And Corey, you know what? Even if Corey is overrated right now, he's shown that he can be that good.
Overrated in the sense that people talk about him and think about him like he's one of the best damage dealing players in the league.
Right.
And I'm not sure he's that. I think the combo of Corey and Stratus is one of the best combos in the league.
Sure.
In stage 4 in the meta we just left. I think that is a much fairer statement to make, but this will really help us kind of realize whether or not, because it doesn't mean I'm right. I just get the feeling that he might be a little overrated.
Sure.
He could be exactly what public perception of him is.
Right.
And seeing him away from his teammate and get assimilating into a new team environment, that's the exact kind of thing that he can do to, in my opinion, elevate him from a player playing great, playing at his best, able to stand toe to toe with absolutely anybody, able to put out dominating performances, to being one of the best DPS players in Overwatch League. So this will go a long way to me. If he can continue to pop off, if he goes to the World Cup with new teammates and has that Hanzo performance that he had earlier in stage 4, that is, in my opinion, the best individual performance Overwatch League has seen, second to Dia last year against Houston in the losing effort.
Right.
That was the only thing that's been better from a single player performance. If he can do that again with a new team and in a new environment, and with having to reacclimate himself to the new teammates, then we can start to have that conversation. The only other way he gets there is sustaining it over a long period of time, not flashing it.
Yeah, but again, for this event specifically, to beat South Korea, we'll take a flash in the pan as long as the pan lines up.
Right.
Yeah.
We need that Hanzo game from Corey in order to get there. So I think he's a great selection here.
Definitely some PogChamp moments in the making, at least hopefully. Next up, we've got the Shields, the tank line here. We've got Super in space. This one seems a little more cut and dry. I think these are pretty strong picks.
I think there's definitely strong picks. Personally, this is the most divisive or most controversial selections that were made on this roster.
Okay.
Not the off tank. There was only one to choose from. We've known it was space for a long time. He's hands down the best the U.S. has to offer. Super, on the other hand, I think in a Reinhardt meta is absolutely that. Okay. I've been a big Super fan for a long time. The next words out of my mouth aren't going to sound like that. Okay. If it's not a Reinhardt meta, he was the third best selection that they could have made. I believe Muma and Fact Fiction are more well-rounded tanks with deeper hero pools and ability to play at a top level on more of the tank heroes. I don't want Super to be playing ball. I I mean, Smurf comes in to play the Orisa for him.
Right.
His Winston's never been great. It was always his liability when San Francisco signed him. So if we get a Reinhardt meta, this is perfect, great, and maybe this lines up with the DPS thing.
Yeah, they're trying to
but
shoot.
To me, is what's this? But the specialties on the other side, right? Like Tracer and Widowmaker. You're going to see that with a Reinhardt meta? So they don't line up to me, right? If you're trying to shoot the moon, now you've got this Death Ball Tracer Sniper composition. I just don't see how that works out. So that to me is a little goofy. Obviously, I'm a little predisposed to preferring Muma. He would have been my choice there for the main tank. I thought he's performed very well in all the World Cups in the past, integrated with those teams very, very well. Did get beaten up a little bit by fusions last year, but had no backup in that fight. Like, that team kind of just mentally collapsed to me. And a lot of people got boomed by fusions in that event. Like, he went in hot, and he went in playing his best Overwatch of his life, and so he was able to beat Muma there. I don't think that means we don't bring him back, but this could obviously, be absolutely correct, like I said. And Super's, in his defense, his other tanks have been improving drastically since he got into Overwatch League. This isn't a case of, like, when he got signed, his Winston was bad. Like, the last we saw before he came into Overwatch League, it wasn't good. But the blood-soaked hammer drop we used to use ages ago, that was about Super. His Reinhardt's always been there. All in all, I think with the 3 tank options we had, it was really difficult to choose one that was going to just be bad. But I think his Super's flexibility, to me, I get it. He's on the MVP ballot. I've discussed why I don't think he should be there. And then his own team backed me up by playing, by benching him basically going into it. So it's a little concerning to me. I think that's what I'm worried about most, even though the DPS lineup might have some issues. You can get hot. They can figure it out. They can, what I mean? I feel like they're going to have an easier time getting a meta figured out, getting a plan for it, and being able to play comfortably than maybe a tank line that lacks a little flexibility might. Also, like, Space is known for his diva, and that can pair with Reinhardt, but it doesn't really anymore, does it? Like, it's pretty much Zarya if the Reinhardt's out there. So, I don't know, it's a little goofy. And then the rest of the world, for some reason, is mad about the support line, so we might as well move into that conversation.
Yeah. The other thing I've got to say is, I don't think it's a coincidence that we see a San Francisco Shock player in each position here. I mean, mostly because they have a lot of U.S.-based players, but,
also,
it's
really good.
They're also very good. And, I've heard the argument of, well, it wouldn't work in this scenario, so I'm not even going to bring it up. I think, a little bit less so than Sinatra, but Super, I think, also is kind of in that, like, Golden Boy Part B, or, like, Golden Boy, sub 1 or sub 2 with Sinatra. It's like they are the golden children of the U.S. They're in all the promos. They're, for whatever, I mean, Sinatra kind of makes sense, but they're the MVP candidates. They're
if this was a popularity contest, then the correct choices were certainly made in this position.
I'm not convinced that it's not.
You're right, and that's not even
that's not a component of it. Yeah,
right. That's not even a bad way to go about it. This is an exhibition event. I'm objectively talking about these rosters and what I think the weaknesses are, and it might sound negative. I'm really excited to root for these guys. Like, this roster does excite me, despite that I can see some weaknesses and may have done things different. I'm from America. I'm rooting for Team USA. There's no selection they could have made that would have changed that. But yeah, just kind of my job to objectively talk about it. So I'm Super, and I love Super too. I've been in that camp for a long time, so I'm really excited to see him go out there and prove you've got the Orisa to do it. Prove the Smurf substitution doesn't make any sense. I want to see that from you. I've never said anything negative about the San Francisco Shock. I love watching them. There's no hate on this side, except for maybe a little bit in the next conversation. But that won't be directed at players either. That'll just be at the reaction. So,
yeah, I mean, the final two here, as were alluded in the early drop, we've got our support line. We've got Moth and the hotly contested Raucous.
Yeah. No-brainer selections. Honestly, there was no alternative available for Team USA to choose from the top 12 is what I'll say. From the 12 they gave us and said, it was going to be between Raucous and Sleepy. And I don't think in the meta we're looking at right now, it's even remotely close. Listen, Sleepy got benched for Guido. You're a Sleepy fan, fine, I get it. But we're leaving a Zenyatta meta, which is the one hero in their hero pools that I believe he's likely better than Raucous at. So if we're leaving that and we're going into Anna and Moira, Raucous is far superior to Sleepy on those two particular heroes. I've not seen enough of either of their Baptistes to really clarify. That's been going more to the main support player recently. But that doesn't mean it'll stay that way in future patches. Obviously, if it becomes like Baptiste Lucio, you're not going to put your flex supports onto Lucio when your Lucio one tricks that have had to learn Mercy and now Bap. Like, you're going to put them on the Lucio. So, but yeah, listen, there's only the one hero that the Sleepy's better than Raucous at. Is Raucous potentially a liability? Yeah, he could be. Is he potentially the weakest member of this roster? Yeah. If USA wants to fix that, they need a better option than Sleepy, because how many different committees have gotten together and auditioned and tried out every single viable option that the United States has had to offer, and every single time, Blevins, it's Raucous that comes out on top. Yeah, he's by all accounts a great teammate, a great personality in the locker room, on comms, all those things. I hear people talk about it being a better shot caller than Sleepy. That might be true, but I really think shot calling is one of the weakest things the Outlaws have going for him. So I'm not going to use that as an argument. I'm going to trust that Moth is going to handle the shot calling regardless of who the flex support is and go from there. I think if there's anybody we should be having a conversation about whether or not they should be here over Raucous, it would be Dogman.
I was going to,
And
we'll talk about that in a second.
We will be talking about that in a second, but we didn't see him in the final 12, so that's kind of out the window. And that's like saying, well, why didn't they choose a Canadian player? It's like they weren't in the running. Why are you still asking this? Like, it's not this. That was decided forever ago. Catch up. And for what it's worth, Dogman, when the announcement was made, said, "Don't blame anybody but me for me not being on this team. I didn't perform well in scrims. It's on me to be better. It's not on them to make a better selection." Was basically a paraphrasing of his tweet after the fact. It seems his opinion has changed a little bit since that tweet was sent. And again, more on that in just a minute. But there was one choice here. I get it if you wanted a different flex support option. I kind of want a different flex support option for the Houston Outlaws too. But until they have one on the roster, I'm not going to sit here and say I want Bonnie to go in.
How come it's not Jonak that's right for the Houston Outlaws?
Because that's not how contracts work, okay? Like this, the only two options were Sleepy and Raucous, and the correct one was chosen. End of story. I'm sorry. Sleepy just has never shown. He popped a little early in season 1, but the team was bad around him, and he just kind of put out consistent stats in spite of the performances. He's by no means a bad player. He was, in my opinion, an upgrade when Washington went out there and got him. But by the time Zenyatta wasn't popular anymore because we were moving out of GOATs, he couldn't even keep that job. So Team USA fans, I get it, but there was no alternative here. So calm down. Sleepy wasn't the answer in the meta that I would project it to be. If we get back to Zenyatta, yes, it could easily be that would have been the better choice. But until we see that, that's not the way the game's heading right now. So until those teams can't completely just guess randomly at what the meta is going to be. They've got a Reinhardt tank. Reinhardt right now pairs way better with an Anna or a Moira, and that's just the end of it. So that's
there's your moonshot there. Yeah, I think the problem with the investing in a heavy Zenyatta player is that yes, you can have those highs, but it's usually almost like a one-trick scenario, though not technically a one-trick scenario. That it's just like, Jonak is obviously a great player, and he's got a decent Anna, but it's just not the same. It's not the same level of dominance. You're not seeing the same level of just impact on the game when they're not playing Zenyatta, and especially if a player is not the greatest on other supports, you just can't. we talked about shooting the moon, but I think it feels a little bit different here for that. So no, I like the raucous. I like the raucous pick here as well. But I guess we'll certainly have to see how that pans out. But speaking of Dogman, yeah, we had a little bit of a spat here between Dogman and Arrow, who of course is the head coach for Team USA. We've got a clip here that I'm just going to play and hope is not inappropriate because I did not listen to it beforehand. But we're going to play it. I'll just edit it out if it is. It's probably not going to be since it's on the actual broadcast. This is Dogman's message to Arrow after the Atlanta versus Fuel.
Congratulations to you all. 6-0 so far at this stage. You guys have been undefeated, and if you win tomorrow, you guys not only will be locked up for top 6, but you guys will have a perfect stage. So how's that feeling right now? You guys have a lot of pressure, but are you guys going to go into tomorrow with a clear head?
Yeah, I mean, today we kind of got cheesed, and me and Fried kind of didn't dominate on Volskaya. But, you know, we feel pretty confident. I think that, you know, after every game we've beat, like, some of the Team USA players, so there's a little bit of a grudge between all of our American players. We have 5 Americans on our team, and none of them got picked up for Team USA, and we just beat Coach Arrow. So what I can say to Coach Arrow is GG, buddy.
Yeah, a little bit of trash talk here. Basically, Dogman calling out the fact that the Atlanta Reign with 5 U.S. players on the team, beating a bunch of the USA players and Coach Arrow, giving the old GG and thumbs up. He went on, according to the Dallas Morning News, at a post-game press conference, he said, in reference to Arrow, he's a nice guy. I just think he's incompetent. Little bit of drama in the OW, in the competitive OW circles. I mean, my personal take here is
spoiler alert. We love it.
Yeah, give me the Dogman heel all day. And you know what? Give me the Dogman heel. Give me the Dogman troll. Give me the Dogman calling it like it is. And also, even if it's a little bit exaggerated, I don't care. I want to see more of this trash talk. We have been huge proponents of trash talk the whole time. There's nothing toxic about that. It's calling it like it is. You know what? Hey, you didn't pick me, and we just crushed you. Yeah, how does that feel? You don't need to be nice. Not everyone has to hand out flowers to their opponents every game. In fact, the opposite, I think, is true.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one thing I will say is it does come across disingenuous to me, right? Because I just talked about that tweet where he said, "Guys, I played like garbage in the tryouts. It was on me. It's my fault." He's got that out there in the world, and then all of a sudden on stage, it tells me he's trying to play the character more than he feels it, which makes me like him a little bit less. I'd rather have it than not have it. Don't get me wrong. But if it was his full bore attitude and just I would just fall in love with the man. Like it would just be the best. But
the excuse me. The thing is like he can have both of those thoughts. There's a difference between like, you know, him giving a little bit of insight and then being like, oh, I'm going to put on the character and say this. That could be the case and maybe is likely to be the case, but also he could have, in the heat of a moment, he just played terrible. Oh, guys, I played terrible in those scrims. It's my fault, blah, blah, blah. Like, you feel bad after that. But after some contemplation and thinking and seeing the other players that you're beating constantly every week, you crush Arrow, you hear things, you know, he's hearing more things and more chatter, and he's in those discords and those conversations more than we are. His opinion may have just evolved. You know, it's not necessarily that he's playing a character. He may have just gotten more information or thought on it more and evolved his opinion from it being my fault to it being your fault. And you're incompetent. Because you know what? I realize that that's the case. I'm good. We crushed you. GG. I could see it.
Yeah. And listen, there's, like you said, there's nothing. I'm sorry. Saying somebody's incompetent. Welcome to planet Earth, where people say things like that all the time,
and also people are incompetent.
He didn't swear. He didn't say anything that wasn't PG-13. It was just he directed some spice at a particular person, and in a moment when he kind of earned the right to, right? Like they just beat the man, and so I listen. I get it. You know, Unco wants to be upset about it. Dallas Fuel fans want to be upset about it. I get it. You're good. Yeah, guess what? You were the target.
Yeah.
So of course you're upset about it, right? Like, congratulations. Dogman's sitting there. Thanks for making this a successful comment. Like, you're literally feeding it by complaining about it. It's really, the whole thing just doesn't add up to me, other than I love seeing it, and I just love watching the kind of the world break down. And there's conversations about whether or not this was professional. Like I said, he didn't swear. And listen, he is an adult, and he chose to direct his spiciness at a head coach of an Overwatch League team. Someday, Dogman's going to be a free agent, and that day might coincide with a day when Arrow is the head coach of an Overwatch League team.
Right.
And now he's just burned a bridge, and now he doesn't get to go there. And there's going to be GMs that don't want that on their team. Okay. And so he's burned more than one bridge in all likelihood by making this comment and going after another team's head coach. But you know what? Other teams and other GMs are going to love personality and spice and things that get people talking and clips that are popular on Reddit. And
things that the fans can get behind.
When you close one door, you open another one. Atlanta fans sure aren't mad about this, so you can clearly see. And also, for what it's worth, it's happened before in sports that an athlete in the moment has said something negative about a team or a coach, and then went on to play for that team or for that coach at a later date. They are all adults. I doubt Arrow's that mad about the comment, to be perfectly honest with you. It rubbed him the wrong way. He didn't love it, I'll guarantee you. But he seems like a well-adjusted, fully grown, mature adult to me. And the guy didn't talk about his family or go step over the line personally. Tell me I'm incompetent at work, I might be inclined to agree with you, but I'm certainly not going to be mad about it. It is what it is. That's fine. If you don't have anything to do with my job, maybe keep it to yourself. But Dogman does. He's in the field. I will say as well, I'm not sure I agree with Dogman. I think that's an interesting topic of conversation. What are your opinions of Arrow as a completely unbiased observer? I'd say that, even though this season you said the Dallas Fuel were hands down your least favorite team in the
Overwatch. That was when they beat Toronto, when Toronto was still I still had a glimmer of hope in my eye.
That
was the beginning. They were the beginning of the end.
Right.
I mean, I think if it really depends on what point of reference you take, right? Like, if you can take a look at where Dallas Fuel is and compare it to where the old Envious teams were. And it is a glimmer of the hope of what that team once was. And if you look at those 2 points, it's not good. They seem really bad. Of course, Arrow wasn't entirely there. But if you just take a look at some of the strides they've made, this season, or at least in pockets of this season, it seems like he's definitely done some things right. It seems like a lot of the players are behind him, and at least on the Fuel. And, I think, despite not having the greatest record and really not making any significant runs, it seems like overall they had some decent performances, and I think Arrow was had played no small part in that. I don't think it's going to be a situation like a Bishop where they had a catastrophic failure. They're going to need to replace the coach. I think that the Fuel have really put a lot of stock into Arrow and Jane, for better or for worse. And, I think it's almost seemed like their personnel changes on the team side have been kind of holding them back a little bit. They're still, even though a lot of players have changed, there's still like the remnant sounds bad. There's still pieces of old envy, and it seems like I think a clean slate would be good for Dallas, and I don't think it necessarily has to be on the coaching side. That's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, I did kind of bait the hook a little bit, and I'm upset you didn't take a bite. I said I'm not sure I agree with Dogman. I'm not sure I disagree with him either. There's a bit of up and down with Arrow for certain. There's positives and there's negatives. There's no denying how quality this team looked in the Goats Manor, right?
Yeah.
They were solid. They were an upper half team. They were clearly on track for playoffs. I'm not sure I've been more right about a prediction ever on this show than basically my analysis of the Dallas Fuel this year. It was, Zachary's doing great on Brig. You know, they're getting good play from their other DPS player, like AKM, I think it was, on the Zarya. Like, that was going well. You know, they were making use of what they had in the meta that they needed to play in, and they were doing a good job at it. It was when things moved into the DPS meta that they fell apart. So what's on Arrow and what's not, we'll never know, to be perfectly honest with you, because my inclination is that, and we also can't really discount the last World Cup either, right? That team fell apart, and I think they fell apart mentally, not gameplay or anything like that. That's on the coach to keep your team in line, to keep them on the same page, to unify them. That's part of your job, and he seems to do a great job of that in Dallas, maybe less so last year at the World Cup. We'll see how this year goes. But I felt to me like he probably pushed to bring Zachary onto the World Cup team. Then he pushed to get him onto the stage, where he promptly collapsed in a pretty terrible performance, and then felt like, I just ruined this guy's chances to get into Overwatch League. People are going to think that's who he is on the stage. And then he pushed to bring him into the Dallas Fuel to prove people wrong, because he really believed in him. That's what it looked like to me from the outside. Doesn't mean it had to be that way. And if that's the case, then I think listen, if they could have just signed, like, imagine this team with Erster in the DPS spot. Like, just thinking of a player that was signed
for Dallas Fuel fans.
Right, like, there was better options available to bring in to solidify this team. So if he pushed for Zachary and then pushed to keep AKM and Taimu and the rest of the DPS line, because we bring up Zachary a lot, but let's be honest, none of the DPS players on the Dallas Fuel, I think, played at an Overwatch League level on DPS characters this season. None of them, not one. But Zachary's the one that Arrow came in after Arrow, that it looked almost like he signed on the heels of the World Cup performance and everything that was going on there. So listen, it's all a crazy puzzle piece, and I know I love to do transparency rants, and I'm sure we'll get to one again someday. I just want to be clear, this isn't an area where transparency would fix it. You don't get that level of look into the decision-making process of any sports team. It's up to the owners and the management to know who did what and who brought in what, and to react accordingly. And fans are just left to play conjecture. And in a vacuum, I have to say, if I think the failings of Dallas was not on coaching, not on anything else, it was just on the performance of the roster that was given to the coaching staff, then that's a general manager. By job description, the general manager made those decisions, and he's the one that needs to be held accountable for them. So I can't sit here and say I think Dogman was right. I can just say I loved seeing him say what he said. It was entertaining, and we've been on the smack talk bandwagon, the booing bandwagon, the whole time, and I'm not about to back down now. And we've also been on the Dogman bandwagon for a very long time as well. So I'm not going to back down from anything at the moment, and just say that anybody acting like what he did was, over the top, incorrect, or wrong. No, it was just spicy. It was designed to get you talking about it. Headlines, news articles came out of this thing. That's exposure for the Overwatch League. It's all a positive. And if you can't see that, you're not seeing the forest through the trees, which you really should be able to do.
Get out of the cave, open up. There's more to life than the dancing shadows on the wall. There's a philosophy 101 reference for you there. But let's move on out of this, and let's move right into
It's tournament talk.
We had the Kit Kat rivalry weekend. Wow. In LA. Nice little weekend here. The LA Valiant Homestand, presented by Kit Kat. I want to know how many Kit Kats were consumed in the weekend. I want to know that number. That's a number I need to know. But let's move.
I ate 12 of them.
Okay, good.
Advertising works on me.
I ate 6. And I don't even like them. So, yes, worked as well. Only 2 days of games here. Start off on Saturday. We had the Atlanta Reign beating the Dallas Fuel 3-1. New York Excelsior winning against Boston Uprising 3-1. San Francisco Shock eking out I said it last time, the greatest rivalry in Overwatch League to date. I don't see a real argument for a more a bigger rivalry right now, besides maybe the LA teams. But San Francisco Shock winning 3-2 over the Vancouver Titans, and LA Gladiators winning the battle for LA 3-1 here. So day one, all of our predictions, I believe we were no, you had LA Valiant winning against Gladiators here. But I had all these predictions correct, at least by winner loss here. And LA Valiant lost their first win in there. On Sunday, we move on to the Hangzhou Spark winning 4-0 versus the Shanghai Dragons. Atlanta Reign winning 4-0 versus the Boston Uprising. The match that we wanted to see the entire year but didn't get to see until the penultimate match of the year, Vancouver Titans win 3-2 over NYXL. And San Francisco Shock dream crushing the LA Valiant out of the playoff play-ins 4-0. So the big thing here is, Death, we didn't have to have our tirade about how a team that goes 0-7 during one of the regular season stages makes it into the play-ins and potentially into the playoffs. We don't have to talk about that. LA Valiant did not get there.
That's absolutely true. The scenario you played out and that I rooted for, though didn't quite predict, was exactly what happened. And the 4-0 loss against San Francisco was just soul crushing and phenomenal to watch. It was great. It was a great weekend, and the kind of forgotten story was the Atlanta Reign finished their 7-0 stage to climb into 6th place and avoid the play-ins altogether.
True.
Notably, they also Seffi or Brad, however you know him, the head coach for Atlanta, before the weekend said, just so everybody knows, we're looking forward. We're not looking at this meta anymore. We can't hang our playoff lives and leave them, we can't hang them in the balance on a patch that we've spent 3 days preparing on. So they kind of looked ahead, and they've been, practicing scrimming, preparing for the playoff patch, and still managed to get these wins. Yep. So I think that was a great, the quality of opponent was significantly lower than the LA Valiant had to face, but nonetheless, New York shows time and time again, every stage 4, what lack of preparation can do to a team. And so props to the Atlanta Reign for kind of keeping it together and still continuing to play great. It shows, I think, a very coachable group of guys that they were able to compartmentalize the new patch preparation, but still not forget what they needed to know for the old patch to perform at a high level. I think that's great news for Atlanta fans for the future. The ability to do that, I think, is really underrated and probably underutilized by these teams. To go,
New York, take notes.
To just say, and now they're never going to matter again, but just imagine if teams were doing what I said they should do probably the whole time and going, okay, well, since stage playoffs don't actually matter, let's look forward at the next stage patch, and hopefully Atlanta does this in the future when stages are coming up, and at some point they draw a line in the sand and go, okay, remember all this, and then reset half your brain to learn the future a little bit. Very, very difficult to do. So congratulations to them for securing that, earning themselves a week off. That's going to be really valuable for them.
Yeah, a week off and potentially 3 matches to play, or 2 matches. 2 additional matches they would have to play just to get into where they are now. So definitely big wins for them there. But that's going to bring us, this is our official, we're not quite at the full
playoffs.
We're at the play-ins for the
playoffs.
I'm just going to keep my finger ready on the playoffs button.
There's the wild card drop too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, this is it's not the
playoffs.
It's the
wild card, bitches. Yeah!
There we go. Okay, very heavy drop episode here.
Wild card is just the best form of play-ins. Why are we calling it the play-ins? It really should just be the wild card round.
Yeah,
and they should be the wild card seeds. It's a funner word. It's a better phrase. Everything about it. Wake up, marketing.
It's fun. It's fantastic.
I will never not call it wild card for as long as it exists. I'll say that.
Wild card, bitches!
Yeah. It definitely is, and it's so good that I'm just going to keep pressing the button the entirety of this whole drop. But let's talk about the wild cards. We don't need to call it the play-in. That is a stupid name. We've got the first wild card match here, the Guangzhou Charge versus the Chengdu Hunters. And the second match is the Philadelphia Fusion versus the Shanghai Dragons. The lowest remaining seed, so this is single elimination for the wild card here. The lowest remaining seed is going to play against London Spitfire, and the highest remaining seed after those first two matches is going to play against the Seoul Dynasty. Excuse me. So let's go through these here. First match, we've got Chengdu Hunters versus Guangzhou Charge. And I'm just going to give a little bit of a spoiler here, but get the coin ready for some flipping. Actually, we don't even necessarily need the coin because we'll just do both scenarios and just kind of talk about them
Sure.
at the same time, but separately. I've got Chengdu here 3-1, and we talked about this before the show. I'm picking a lot, and I mean maybe even entirely with my heart here. I want to see Chengdu. I think we talked about it a little bit last episode. Chengdu was the beneficiary of the LA Valiant Dream Crush. So even though I don't care about LA Valiant's losses going in vain, I want to see the Chengdu Hunters who had to scrape by and get lucky actually take something out of it. In terms of the actual head-to-head matchup, really am probably, if I'm just looking at objectivity and numbers here, I'm probably going with Guangzhou Charge. But it's, you know what? It's playoff time. It's wild card time. What more wild than the wild card play-ins?
Wildcard, bitches! Yeah!
It's a magical time. Throw facts, throw logic right in the trash. It's sports magic, baby.
You basically got to, I think, the crux of what your argument should be. And it's, listen, is there a team that's better prepared for a new hero to be added in on short notice, on a drastically different meta, to just figure it out and get it right than the Chengdu Hunters? They seem almost tailor-made for the situation in that respect. So they have a solid chance here to win. But when I just look at the rosters and I see Shu and I see Nero and I see Happy, it's just I don't see the equivalent on the other side of the coin. I'm ecstatic that Chengdu made it here, if for no other reason than I can forever point flame at that when he refuses to, when he chooses to play the meta instead of playing your own game. And if they miss the playoffs again for a third year in a row doing that, like you just get to point at it and go like, you could just make it instead if you played your game. So I love that happened. It's great for the game. They just, to me, don't stand up to the level of play that the three I mentioned earlier have been putting out through stage 4. Guangzhou started the stage something like, I think it was like 14th, 15th place. Like they were right there with Houston. They finished 9th. Like they weren't even close to not making it into the play-ins here. So I think they're a team that's getting hot at the right time, and I think they're kind of my favorite to be the season 2 Philadelphia Fusion, to just go, get in with a low seed, go on a run, and just make it. Just play your best when it matters most, and I think that's what Guangzhou's doing, and I expect it to continue.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot I can disagree with here, which is why we don't necessarily need the coin, because I actually am in pretty much agreement. But again, you know what? It's wild cards, it's playoffs. I want to see some magic here. There's gonna be some upsets. Sorry, nerds. There's gonna be upsets. There's gonna be drama. There's gonna be sports magic. It's gonna happen. That's what happens in playoff situations.
I'd be more surprised if I got all my predictions here right than if I, then. I don't know where I was going with that, but you get my point.
I do. It's going to be very hard to predict these, because I'll preface this because I don't want to keep bringing it up over and over again, but this is a new level here, especially for teams who haven't been there before. Especially for I guess all of these teams have been actually, have Guangzhou and Chengdu been in a stage playoffs? I
Chengdu certainly hasn't. Guangzhou, I don't know, because they were
Guangzhou
only good in 4.
maybe
and, yeah, I don't think
So, for all intents and purposes, they have not had a lot of stage playoff experience. They're obviously new teams this year, so this could be their very first real exposure to that higher level of play. That can
Fraggy's
either
been on playoff teams before.
True.
Think about it.
true, but that could bring
Play
out
on Guangzhou.
yeah. Hashtag free Fraggy. That can bring out some jitters, but it could also bring out, like, we could see some unsuspecting champions arise out of this, just because some people deal with that pressure and some people just thrive off of it. And, you know, regardless of the lights and the crowd and whatnot for the regular season, you get used to it after a while. And there's just not the same stakes as there are here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some crazy stuff happen. Actually, I would be surprised if we didn't.
You might see. It's going to be nuts. There's no doubt about it. It's the same stage, it's the same crowd, but it's the if we lose, we go home forever. This team doesn't exist again. Like, there's going to be free agency. There's going to be roster changes. Those teams should be brotherhoods now. They should be family units, basically, right? And they should want to fight to protect that. And you're absolutely right. Any one of these teams, no matter what we think of they should do, going into this new meta with the changes that are going to come with that, could just collapse in on themselves. We've seen it before in countless sports, in Overwatch League, and it's never going to be something that goes away. That possibility is always there.
Yeah, I mean, from a more practical standpoint, like, this is going to be the last time a lot of these players are playing on the stage, at least, obviously, for this season, potentially ever, because free agents might not get signed back. But more importantly, this is your sort of your pre-scrim for a possible new team if you are a free agent or coming up on a free agent. This is your look. The deeper you get into this playoff, the more footage these prospective teams are going to have on you in high pressure situations, and the more recent the footage is going to be. So this is going to mean a lot for all of these players, and I wouldn't necessarily. I'd probably put a little bit more brain into it than I am, but you definitely want to put at least some heart into these picks if you are making them. But let's move on to the second match here. We've got the Shanghai Dragons versus the Philadelphia Fusion. Yeah, I think maybe I want a little bit more brain in this one because I'm picking Philly here over Shanghai. Shanghai got trounced by Hangzhou last week. Shanghai had, they were on Cloud9, not to be confused with the org Cloud9 that owns the London Spitfire, but they were on Cloud9 in Stage 3, obviously being the Stage 3 champions. Philly has looked lackluster lately, but they have the pedigree. They have been in these situations before. They've made late runs. They have hype players, even though they, Carpe and EQO have not been... they've been shells of their former selves in a lot of ways, but now is the time to step up for them. We talked with EQ at Grand Finals last year. He has that champion mentality, that fierce competitor mentality that even if he's not popping off necessarily, I know he's not going to let these odds get to him, and I think that's huge for a player going into this situation, especially if they're unfavored. Death, who do you have?
I'm taking Shanghai, and this is the closest one of the first two slates, obviously, the ones that we know for sure what the matchups are going into the weekend. There's so many reasons to not be confident in either of these teams. Mm-hmm. You said the Philadelphia Fusion have looked shaky and inconsistent recently. If by recently you mean the last 4 stages of Overwatch League, then I absolutely agree with you.
Hey, they're in the play-ins, man. They couldn't have been that bad.
I don't know how. I don't understand how, though. Anyways.
I know. I can't recall a single victory that they had the entire season.
I can't recall a game when I just thought they stood out to me, like a week where I'm just like, you know what? Maybe Philly's got it back. I just can't. Like, I just feel like they've eked out and squeaked by enough wins. But I mean, I'm sure we can go back and find some of them. But man, it shouldn't be that hard to remember them, right? There should have been, if this was a team of destiny, there should have been some sign of it in the regular season, and it just, there wasn't. I don't know when it was. Even when the DPS score was able to come back and play, where were they? Where were the Carpe pop-offs? Where is the ice in EQO's veins?
Saving it.
But the fact that it's
Keep 'em
playoffs,
chilled.
the fact that we've seen them hit it at the right time, to me brings this right back to a 50-50. That playoff mentality, that edge, it becomes so close. I've just seen it more recently than the Shanghai Dragons,
Right.
so I'm more willing to buy into them getting it figured out on this patch, and just, maybe Gamzu was just bad at Orisa, but isn't it going to be Orisa Sigma? That's what a lot of what the talk is,
Right.
about what the next meta is going to be. Even though I said a couple episodes that I didn't think Sigma was going to be a big part of it, it looks like I might have been wrong. But again,
We'll see.
we're getting the clips they're willing to show us from the things that they
Right.
didn't like when it happened,
Right.
not a clear understanding of what the meta will be or what
Yeah.
the strategies are.
Yep.
So we're basically still completely in the dark about what the meta will be. But yeah, I'm just willing to buy into Shanghai just plays Diem a lot instead of Youngjin, and that fixes them, than I am all of a sudden Sato's a quality Overwatch League main tank. I'm just not there. And I don't know that I'll ever be there. I can't forgive them for benching Fraggy, so
Yeah.
eat the loss.
I mean, in my mind, they still have Fraggy in spirit. I think if Philly wins, Fraggy should get a ring. I think if Philly wins, Fraggy gets the honorary ring. They do that in the NBA. I'm sure they do that in other sports too. Friggin' Anderson Varejao has a ring, and he didn't.
Gesundheit.
Yeah, exactly. He is. I hate Anderson Varejao. So anyone who is an Anderson Varejao fan, please.
My new favorite NBA player.
I don't even know if he plays anymore. He's
If
kind of
I
like
had to-
he's kind of like a
If I had to
6'8"
rank
Lucio.
all-time NBA players, I would put, what's his name again?
Anderson Varejao.
Anderson Varejao above LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, and Steph Curry. Easy. He's just better.
He's better than he's not better. He's terrible.
And now that I've exhausted the entire list of NBA players I can name,
I feel like you forgot to say Michael Jordan.
you're not wrong. Because that was the only era I actually watched baseball, because it was so apparent. Basketball.
It's
It was
funny.
so
It's
apparent.
funny because you didn't mean
Sports
to
ball.
say baseball.
Sports ball, no. I don't watch either sport.
Yeah.
So they're basically the same thing to me.
Yeah.
But
Michael
it
Jordan
was
did play
apparent
ball.
in that era that you were watching greatness in a way that only Wayne Gretzky showed me, and even then I was like too young to really appreciate it
Yeah.
at the time. And that was definitely the name. But no, I don't regret it, because nobody was better than Michael Jordan. I said exactly what I meant to say.
I mean,
Take
I
that.
agree with that up until 2003 when LeBron James entered the league. But let's move on. It's only funny when the person I'm arguing with cares more about Michael Jordan. It's not funny when you don't actually care. So, in my scenario, the next match here is going to be Chengdu versus London. And I'm really stretching it here. I'm looking at the result that I put in a few hours ago, and I'm really questioning I'm picking
Nice choice.
Chengdu here. This there's almost no way that this is actually happening, but let the
It's
meme
just-
be alive.
It's the sports magic. It's the new meta, the wild card team.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that, but I feel like I already used that earlier to get them a win. You know what? They've got
Well,
more of it.
It'll still be the playoffs.
Yeah, it's true. It's still going to be there. Give me Chengdu. Probably a 3-2. Honestly, I mean, London is almost certainly heavily favored here. Not only are they on paper the better team right now, they are the returning champions. They have done it before. They know exactly what they need to do. They certainly have been clutch even when they haven't really needed to be in the playoffs. London's probably a pretty clear choice over here, but again, my heart is leading me here. Give me Chengdu 3-1.
My version of this matchup is London versus Shanghai. Listen, London's biggest enemy is themselves. They're who can beat them. Not Shanghai, not Chengdu. It's London. They can get in their own way. They are a team that traditionally is worse early in new metas and then gets better. So I think if they're going to suffer a surprise loss to a lower seed or something, it's right away. But yeah, I don't know. I think the whole rest of the league is going to be rooting for whoever the London opponent is. But I just can't see it. Give me London here, 3-0 over Shanghai. Just like you said, they've already shown the full capacity to go the entire distance in the playoffs. It's very difficult to pick against that when everything's on the line here, and we finally are in the playoffs.
You know, I want Chengdu to win here, but I wouldn't mind seeing like London just like powering up and crushing through and making it through from the play-ins and just being up, like leveling up on the way to play these top tier teams. I wouldn't be upset with that. Obviously, I want to see the Chengdu underdog here, but I wouldn't be too upset there. And the last match here for my scenario is going to be Philly versus Seoul. I spoke my praises of Philly before. I've spoken my, I have a lot of the same issues here with Philly and Seoul. They're both relatively inconsistent. They've shown, Philly, I don't even really recall showing too many great moments this season. Seoul has, which is going to give them the edge for me. Give me Seoul here, 3-1. Again, Philly, none of this really matters because of sports magic. Anything could happen, but I'm giving a little bit more credence here to some raw stats and numbers and feels here. Give me Seoul.
I agree with you if that's the opponent, that's who's going to win, so I'm with you there. My scenario, however, pits Seoul against the Guangzhou Charge. Seoul's got to be rooting for your scenario to play out. Like, they've just got to be the biggest Chengdu Hunter fans in the world, because they're the ones that can give them kind of the easier draw to make it in. Guangzhou is, to me, like I said already, they're the team that is playing at their best at the exact right time. Seoul is the team that from week one hasn't known what they want to do with the players that they have in their room. I've been forecasting this outcome for 4 stages now, basically 3, because in the first stage it's almost acceptable to experiment a bit, right? It's when you've got to, and then you use the results to make your decision. Seoul never made a decision. That's what's held them back from, in my opinion, that there's enough talent on that roster for them to be a San Francisco, a Vancouver, a New York. They could be right there. They've held themselves back. They've never been in the playoffs. This is their first time. They've never been in that your season is over if you lose right now scenario, other than when there was like 4 games left. The regular season,
season just losing and being out of control.
One match will always be what knocks you out, right?
It doesn't feel, we lost it right on our last match. It's like,
but it's different here in the playoffs. If you've ever played sports and made it into a postseason, you've experienced it. So I've got Guangzhou winning this. I've got him winning it decisively, 3-1, while Seoul plays musical chairs on stage and gets themselves all dizzy, and then they just fall down flat on their face. I said I think this was the path they were going to take all season. Here we are, Guangzhou. Prove me right, please.
Please. It would be a bit of redemption for us. So, in my scenario, I've got the Chengdu Hunters and the Seoul Dynasty moving on here to the actual playoffs proper from the wild card. In your scenario, you've got London and Guangzhou advancing. So pretty different brackets for us.
We was gonna say we told you they couldn't have been much more different. Boy, did we mean it. It was almost comical when we pasted them into the notes and I saw yours. I'm just like, oh.
Oof. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that I don't think either of us are 100% right. I think there's definitely going to be some sort of a little mix and match, though. It would be funny. Let us know who you think is closer. Me with Chengdu and Seoul advancing, or Deathblow with London and Guangzhou advancing. Honestly, I think if I'm placing my vote, I'm picking you. But we could both be wrong. It could be 2 teams entirely different than that. Only this week will tell. But, guys, that is going to be it for this episode here. Short week. We got a short. I mean, the episode's not short. It's just about the same amount of time we always are. But it's winding down, friends. It's winding down. Yeah, any last words here before we get going, Death?
Just remember that the U.S. in Raucous stands for United States, okay? The man is made to represent our country and to destroy the South Korean Overwatch empire. He's going to single-handedly do it, you guys. It's going to be one Moira orb, and just the entire South Korean team's going to die. The way the ability works, the math doesn't line up. Don't question it. It's just going to happen.
It's magic.
Embrace it. Also, if you don't like the roster, stop jumping ship to another country. These don't matter to begin with. Get over it. Like that drives me nuts. I'm a Canadian when the World Cup comes around. Calm down, Edgelord. Nobody cares, okay? Root for your country. It's supposed to be fun. Enjoy it, and don't get bent out of shape if somebody loses.
I'm a Team Belgian fan because they pick Raucous.
Like, okay, well, why don't you just watch the StarCraft Championship instead?
Personal apologies to half of our Discord who did that exact thing when the roster was
I'm doubling down. Fight me in real life.
Yeah,
fight me in grand finals.
Kyle win.
I'm a Czechoslovakian Overwatch World Cup fan now. I'm Team Chechnya.
Okay, I'm done. Thanks, guys, for listening. Thank you for putting up with our gentle ribbing of our fan base. We gotta give it back a little bit every once in a while.
Guys. Yeah, we take a good amount in the Discord.
I take a really good amount every time Toronto and or New York loses. I love it. But guys,
Stage 4 was rough.
It sure was. But guys, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to check us out all over the place. High Noon Podcast everywhere. Twitter, YouTube, iTunes, all that. Spotify. Don't forget about Spotify. High Noon Podcast. We are everywhere that you want to be. If you're listening on one of the platforms, jump over to another one. Try another one out. We record on Twitch, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. Generally on Mondays, sometimes on Tuesdays. Like today is a Tuesday, but we're going to be on at the top of the week. Make sure you're following us at High Noon Podcast on Twitter for that. If you do want to support us and support what we are doing, you can head over to patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. It helps out tremendously with these trips. We are going to be at grand finals. I believe our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted for everything we need for grand finals. So we are going to be there. It is going to be great. We're going to have probably a little bit of a low-key meetup. We're not sure exactly on the details yet, but if you are going to be there, let us know in the Discord. Maybe we'll get a little a chat channel or something just to coordinate with maybe a couple people that are going to be there as well. But, guys, that is going to be it. Thank you so much for listening. For Deathblow, I am the Blovins, and remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
If you guys made it all the way to here, just type a 3 in Discord general chat at any time, and we'll know. No one else will. It'll be our little secret.